And app that's on the phone anyway. So
This is kind of old-fashioned compared to.
and that's what I like about smartphones. I'm all for privacy.
Yeah.
And all means, I mean, if you look at the phone, I got the front of my camera taped over. You know, so if it's open like that, somebody can't see your video recording.
Yeah.
Them. But with the sheriff, it's different. I mean, he's a public official.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand, the aspect of him being on duty, 24/7. But to a certain extent, he's really not on duty, because if he is, he shouldn't drink, because he's drinking on duty. So I can afford some aspects, if he needs personal time. But when he showed up in the store in uniform with his badge and weapon, I take that as being, in official business. And that's why I approached him and asked, his permission to ask him some questions. And, he didn't say no, contacting me in my office or anything. He, turned towards me, which was, implied that he didn't mind. So I asked him the question, and he implied consent when he answered. So, I just continued to ask him questions, because he didn't tell me that, he was done or anything like that.
Yeah. All right, so let's start at the beginning. What's your name?
My name is Chad Claflin.
How do you spell the last name?
Claflin.
C-L-A-F.
Yeah, Lin.
And your middle initial, Chad?
A.
A. And how old are you?
29.
And you worked for KBS? It's Kellermeyer Building Services?
Kellermeyer Burgesson Services. It recently merged, because it used to be Burgesson's, and then it merged with KBS.
So Kellermeyer Burgesson? How do you spell Burgesson?
B-E-R-G-I-S-O-N, I believe.
B-E-R-G-I-S-O-N.
I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Services.
Yeah.
And what do they do? What is their business?
Like janitorial stuff work, cleaning, floor maintenance, and stuff like that.
And how long have you worked with them?
I was at that location over 2 years.
And that's the Watertown location?
Yeah, the Watertown Home Depot.
But they're a subcontractor?
Yes, they're subcontracted. They do like Home Depots, J.C. Penney's, Targets, do a bunch of stores nationwide and stuff.
Okay. And are you still working there?
No, sir. I've since been terminated.
How did that happen?
I was told by my boss through a message that
What
they
kind
were
of message?
behind me.
Like
At first I was told they were behind me, and then when I called him later on the other day to find out if our company would mind if I did the interview, because I didn't know if they'd have a personal objection to it. He told me at that time they wouldn't care because I was terminated. So I've called and left messages with our human resources, and still haven't heard back from them.
So you asked for permission after you did the interview?
No. For this interview, I didn't know if they would have an issue with me doing this interview because of the last one.
Okay. So for the newspaper interview.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one, I didn't really consider it so much as an interview as just impromptu questions for a public official.
Why did you record it?
As I stated earlier, I record all meetings, especially with police, because this day and age, police believe they are above the law, and this is, the prime example of it.
And you said in your video that this isn't the first police officer or law enforcement officer that you've seen in Home Depot in uniform.
Correct, and that was the main reason for approaching him. He is the highest authority of power in our county. Even if federal officers come in here, he has the right, to detain and arrest them. So I was asking him because I've seen Watertown Police, Department of Homeland Security, and just the other day I seen a TSA official in there. She was a lady. To my knowledge, she would have been having to come from roughly Syracuse area.
Yeah.
Because I know our local airport is controlled by the sheriffs for security.
Well, there are TSA employees there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see, that's why I didn't make an assumption as to where she was from. I just assumed it was, well, technically I didn't make an assumption it was Syracuse. But I know that that there's been a debate over the sheriff providing security, so I didn't think it was there. But I wasn't questioning him about the TSA because I wasn't sure on that topic. As for the other three, I know that by law through Section 400 of the Penal Code, they're allowed to open carry while they're on duty and stuff. There was legislation passed. I ain't sure the exact House resolution number. I believe it was 214. but it was the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, LEOSA, which actually authorizes them to carry concealed off-duty anywheres, and this was past September 11th. You know, so if there is an exemption to the law, you know, that's all I was simply asking, you know, is where is that exemption for them on duty to open carry? Because I've been told, as I stated by Watertown Police and other off-duty officers, that they are not allowed to open carry. You know, he didn't give me any law. He just, you know, or state any law. You know, he just stated he was allowed to carry.
So he didn't cite any particular
No, sir.
law?
No. What I uploaded was just about the complete interview. You could see where he turned around back towards to do his personal shopping, and that's when I, you know, left him alone, because to me he implied the interview was over or the questions was over, however they want to state it.
And so what happened after that?
I didn't.
What day was this, by the way?
I believe it was Tuesday.
Okay.
I believe.
So, because Wednesday was when it kind of all hit the web, or when did you upload it?
I uploaded it, I believe it was first thing that morning from my phone. Just that way, if anything ever happens to my phone, if you look at there, you'll see other videos I've got that I've uploaded from my phone. I don't
uploaded Tuesday or Wednesday?
No, just from that day. I mean, I've got one from 2 years previous where I protested Obama's coming to visit Fort Drum. I use that as kind of like a backup, so that way, you know, if anything happens to my phone, say it gets taken as evidence and gets lost, then, you know, I've still got that backup. I don't know who did it, but it was sent to News Junkie. I have my suspicions from, you know, people, but I ain't going to imply anybody that did it.
So you didn't send it?
No, sir, I did not personally send it to News Junkie or anyone else. I was told it was sent to 2 places. But that was, you know, by another person, not myself. I didn't expect any publicity out of it. The whole fact I'm being terminated over it, you know, I think that's just ridiculous and is basically an abuse of his powers, because it wasn't harassment or anything that he is stating.
So after you did the interview, or after you asked the sheriff a few questions, he went and talked to somebody about you?
Yeah, I guess he finished his shopping and stuff. I went back and did my job like I was supposed to. You know, it wasn't like I ambushed him or anything like that. I just seen him on there. So it was, you know, it was roughly the same time I've taken my break for the past 2 years I was there. So I put my flooring machine off from the side, took the keys off so that way nobody could do it, you know, so that way it's safely stored. And then I proceeded to ask him a question that took maybe 2 full minutes from, you know, and then I went back to doing my job. He continued his shopping, and then I seen him talking to the store manager, and that's when I assumed that he had an issue with it.
So were you asking him these questions to satisfy your own
To satisfy my own curiosity, yes, sir, because as I stated, I was given, you know, conflicting information, and him being the overall power of, you know, our county, you know, with certain exceptions, he should be able to give me, you know, the correct information as to, you know, if he allows, because if it is illegal in New York State to open carry, he can write an exemption for his office, or, you know, as long as it's voted on and passed, whatever, you know, whatever the process is done legally. However, you know, if it's done for just his deputies, that's different from Watertown, you know, and he should be able, you know, to state the difference between that, you know, if that is the case, or for all law enforcement, and be able, you know, to give me the exemption under, you know, the law to where they are.
So it seems like your primary questions were about him carrying his firearm, and then you asked about the vehicle as well?
Yeah, it was basically because I see him as a public official. I feel he should be held to a higher standard than even regular people, because he is supposed to enforce the laws. You know, so he should at least be following the laws, unless they have been honorably exempted, like open carrying, you know, their firearm while they're on duty. That's a given. You know, something like that. But a lot of these laws, they believe they are exempted from, that they're not. And that's because people refuse to enforce it or even question their authority, because they know that they're, you know, they will abuse their authority in ways that have been, shown by the sheriff.
Are you from Watertown?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived in Watertown. I don't believe anybody's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in trouble in my past. But everybody, everybody has a right, to ask their questions. And with him being a public official, he should be expected to be asked questions when he's presenting himself in a, professional public appearance manner.
When he's showing up in uniform, he's kind of...
he's implying that, that he's the sheriff. I mean, it's a small town, most people know who he is. But when he shows up in a uniform with a sidearm with his badge, he appears as an official capacity, especially, if he's driving the official vehicle.
Do you think, when you approached him, was there anything in your tone or your demeanor that you think he picked up on that he felt threatened by?
I don't think so, because if you watch the beginning of the video, you can see where he's, kind of got a smirk on his face. Like when I ask him, and then he starts to, you can see his actions change throughout the video. I think once he realized, he wasn't in the best of light for regulation-wise. I don't want to say caught doing something wrong because I can't prove it was wrong, but may not have been right, in the public eye. That's when, he may have felt intimidated. And if that's the case, I don't really think he should be sheriff because I'm 5'7", 5'8" most, $125 soaking wet. And if I'm going to intimidate him with, with a smartphone recording our conversation for his safety as well as mine, is it really the people, we are putting in charge of protection for our county?
Were you wearing a uniform?
I had a work shirt on, yes, sir.
Did it say Home Depot or anything?
No, sir. I had nothing stating I worked for Home Depot, and that's why I even stated in the video, after he assumed that I worked for Home Depot, that I was not employed by Home Depot in any way, that I was a subcontractor.
What did the work shirt have any writing?
I believe it said Burgeson's on it. It was one of our older shirts.
Do you think it's possible that he thought that you were
an employee because they're working at the store?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and that's why I clearly stated, that I was not a Home Depot employee.
But you didn't say that till the end of the interview.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just thinking, like, when you were approaching him, he may have thought that.
Yeah, I was a Home Depot associate. Yeah, because he may have seen me in the store. Yes, sir. I can understand that. And like, even if I was a Home Depot associate, would that, one, remove their First Amendment rights to question a public official? And two, would that make a difference as to them, his authority? Should he be enforcing his authority whether they are a Home Depot associate or not, for just asking, under, in my opinion, questions that should be covered under the First Amendment? I mean, I'm not a journalist. I don't, proclaim to be a journalist. I did happen to read the mayor's blog that said ambush journalism. Right. I think that's a joke, that's coming from, a known criminal. I mean, like I said, everybody's got a criminal past. However, when you want to sit there and throw mud at somebody without even reading the description in the video, I think there's definitely some issues that should be brought up with him.
Talking about the mayor?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't listen to his radio show or anything. I didn't expect any of this to happen. As I stated, I just uploaded it to my YouTube channel, so that way I had it. And then I got a phone call saying, hey, it's on News Junkie. So I went to News Junkie, and then I seen the mayor's comments below it, so I read it and read some of the comments on there. I mean, I ain't followed. I mean, in the beginning, I answered some of the questions on my YouTube channel to people, because some people do pose legitimate questions, and I feel that I should answer them. I mean, I'm not obligated to as the sheriff was, but I still afford them the same respect as if they were the journalist and I had questions for them. But when they refuse to read the comments, or not the comments, but the description or any comments that I have already answered, to me, it's no longer wasting my time, because then they're just trying to input their stance on it. Some of them didn't even watch the video; they're just going off the title and stuff.
Sure. So, I mean, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because I just looked on the mayor's blog for that entry, and there were 81 comments. I mean, I don't know that I've seen that many comments on one of his posts, at least in the time that I've been here. Did you? I mean, you said already you didn't expect any of this. What has been your reaction? I mean, you've been called everything from a hero to something worse.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people out there calling me an asshole and everything else. To me, the people calling me an asshole, they should really look at what I did. I mean, was it true journalism? No, it wasn't meant to be true journalism. There wasn't no professional standard to it. I mean, could I have asked the questions differently? I probably could have. However, I ain't been to journalism school. I was asking the questions as I saw fit at that time. I didn't prepare the questions. Is this going to offend him or that? I just asked him those questions. And if they are going to villainize me for asking the simple questions that we are supposed to ask of our elected officials to keep them honest, what are they really supporting?
Do you think that you were asking questions that other people wanted to ask and they just
A lot of people have probably wanted to ask those questions. Are we paying for the gas for all of his personal use? I mean, I can understand if he gets a call, as I stated, in the middle of the night and has to go to it, or here and there. But some instances, it may be more cost benefit for the city or the county, as he's acting as, for him to use his personal vehicle as volunteer firefighters do, or say our military that is also on duty 24/7, as some people have stated. Does that mean they get to take Humvees and tanks and everything else home? They're technically on duty. They're issued that vehicle for work. And that's where the county regulations would come into play as to what he can and cannot do, which I personally didn't have access to, so I felt implied to ask him. And that's apparently when he took offense to it.
You think he would have had a different reaction if you hadn't been filming him?
I think if probably not. He may have had more words to say. However, I think that he knew he was being filmed. So that did limit his response as to saying, let's go talk to the manager. Just by that statement, it implies that nothing good is going to come from it. However, if I wasn't recording, he may have said, I'm going to make sure you're no longer here or something along those lines, because that is essentially what he did.
When did you find out that you had been terminated? What day was that?
Let's see, today's Friday, so it was Wednesday. It was the same day that I contacted, or you contacted me.
Okay, so it was the day that it kind of took fire on the,
yep.
on the internet. Has anybody contacted, besides me, or your friends, anybody from the public contacted you other than your YouTube comments?
Not
and
really,
stuff like
no. I mean, if somebody wants a comment, I'm not here to make money off of it. I'm not looking, for any fame for it. That's why, I was going to get my company's opinion, because if they felt, it was in the best interest, I didn't do it. I wasn't going to do it, but I personally have nothing to hide over it. I feel it's legitimate questions everybody should be asking, as to the ones pertaining to personal use, should be brought up at a county meeting. Same thing with the laws. I think he should be, forced to show the laws that allow them to do it.
Now, the sheriff's department has kind of come under some fire over the last year or so for some different things that have gone on.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of all of those?
I'm not aware of all of them. I mean, there's a lot of things going on nationwide. So I've tried to pay attention to a lot of things. I ain't gonna say I'm dead focused against the sheriff's department. However, I have been I've seen a few of the major cases. How about Officer Hallett passing out in his patrol car, the Crystal Royce ordeal, and stuff like that. So, to me, honesty and integrity is not that sheriff's primary concern. I'm not saying that he's not honest, and I'm not saying he doesn't have integrity. However, I don't feel they are the primary concern. I feel that these days, as with all police stations, it has come down to financial generation of revenue.
And So financial generation of revenue
by local, state, and federal county officials. That's why you see all these laws being written, but yet they refuse to enforce any of the current laws that are out there.
You said that you've been in trouble with the law before.
Yeah.
What happened?
I've been arrested for like criminal trespassing and stuff like that. You know, I was on probation back, and this is all back when I was 16, 17, stuff like that. I ended up basically growing up. It's back when I was a teenager. You know, and then I ended up having a kid when I was 20, well, just before I turned 21. And ever since then, you know, I've basically been, I ain't going to say a law-abiding citizen because, I mean, everybody breaks a law now and then because there's so many laws they don't know about, as I was just stating. But, you know, I don't go around causing trouble. For, you know, ever since I've had my son, I've been a single parent that's worked hard to take care of my son and put a roof over his head.
How old is your son now?
He's going to be turning 9 here in, I believe, 17 days. His birthday's the 19th. Okay.
Was there anything in those interactions that you had with the police back then that sort of formed your opinions about them?
No, I believe even back then when I was a kid, the trouble I got in, I deserved. Oh, I ain't gonna say I deserved, but I deserved the punishment for the trouble I did. I ain't saying I didn't. They were doing their job, and this was, I mean, early '90s, mid '90s, might even have been late '90s. I'm not sure. I think over the past maybe 10 years or so, you've seen a drastic militarization of the police. You know, and since then, you know, it's been more about generating revenue as opposed to, you know, protecting the people because, I don't know how to put it, but that's no longer their job. I ain't sure if you're aware, but the Supreme Court has ruled that, you know, it's not their job to protect and serve the people anymore. I mean, not all the officers, I'm sure, feel that way. I'm sure a lot of them are there for the protection of their communities. Just like a lot of them are, you know, good, honest cops that are, you know, trying to make the community better. It's the, I don't want to say rogue cops, but the dishonest cops that give them all a bad name.
Did you like your job?
I didn't have a problem with my job. I mean, I've been there 2 years. I've only had one complaint from the store. And that was, you know, because I wasn't doing something that I wasn't required to do. And that was taken care of. You know, I talked to the store manager, and that was taken care of that day.
Something that you weren't doing in terms of the
days of your... I was doing more than our contract was specified in our contract. And it became expected of me. The biggest thing was, what the complaint was if they had parties or something like that, they were expected to empty the trash and all that stuff and sweep the building before the start of the janitorial shift. For the longest time, they weren't doing it, emptying any of the trash or anything, which, you know, I can understand sometimes they get busy. But it got to the point where it was every night, and they would leave piles of cardboard boxes and all this. You know, I was expected to clean it. And I just was no longer going to do it because it wasn't my job. You know, and that's what the whole issue arose over. And like I said, you know, once I pointed out, listen, you know, this isn't my job. I shouldn't be expected to do it. You know, that's when it changed, you know, and they started taking care of them.
Was the complaint related to you not doing something that wasn't your job in the first place? Is that...
No, it was all over basically like the trash, because they would leave trash there from like the overnights and stuff like that, their parties, that I wasn't in our contract expected to take care of. However, I had done it in the past, so they expected me to do it. And when I didn't do it, that's when, you know, the complaint was
Okay, all right. Did you go to Watertown High School?
Yes, sir.
Did you graduate?
Nope.
Okay.
Because as I stated, I had a troubled youth growing up.
Yeah.
I was in a foster home when I was 12 years old. And I got out, and I realized in the foster home that nobody could change me. I had to change myself. And that's, I started changing from that point on. I got out. I was released on the probation, as, most people are. I ended up completing that probation, and have never really been in trouble since. I mean, I've had disagreements with my son's mother, and stuff like that. But I've never been arrested or any of that stuff since, I'd say I was probably 16, 17, might have been 18 or something like that, I think. I mean,
did you get a GED or anything?
No, sir. Like I said, I've been a single parent since then. So my primary concern, was keeping a roof over my son's head.
So, you're working, you're doing these different jobs, trying to provide for your family. When you've gotten in trouble in the past, you've been punished for it. Do you see, like...
Yeah, one thing I do want to say, because I say I ain't been in trouble in a while.
Yeah.
I did forget, and I ain't trying to hide or anything, but like 2 years ago, I believe it was 2 years ago, I was actually arrested out for protesting President Obama's trip to Fort Drum. Okay. I don't want to leave that off like I was hiding or something. I slipped my mind, and I just remembered it, because I said I ain't been in trouble. I was actually ticketed, and when we went to court, they had to dismiss it. It was dismissed because we were arrested by the MPs, and they basically didn't have jurisdiction.
Okay.
However, since then, the law has been changed to where now I could legally be arrested and charged with a felony for it because the Secret Service was at that location. I'm not sure if you were aware of that or not.
No, I didn't know.
And that's, a part of it. Like, there's a lot of laws that have been passed and stuff like that. And that's where there is a lot of conflicting issues in the laws, that I want to make sure I'm clear not only for myself, but if somebody else has that wrong information as well.
So the reason I guess I asked earlier about, have you seen any of the negative press that the sheriff has gotten or anything? I mean, you weren't approaching him to talk to him because you had seen that stuff in the news. You were just more curious about stuff that you had observed people doing and things that you were kind of upset about because you felt like they were acting above the law? Is that...
Yes, sir. I feel the issues that were already in the news should be left to the investigative journalists, the ones who have been trained, like yourself and stuff, who have a college education, so they can't say, oh, he's uneducated and da-da-da-da. To do that, I wasn't trying to make it political or any of that stuff. I had my personal questions. However, it's went political with the mayor and everything else, so I'm sure that does and is going to have a factor on it and everything as well.
What other sort of videos do you have on your YouTube channel? Or?
On my YouTube channels, I have, like I said, the one that I personally made was of President Obama visiting Fort Drum. I've got a wider range of videos due to the fact that I do not trust our government officials strictly for this reason. They're not held accountable. I mean, if you look at a recent statistic published by the FBI in the past 150 FBI shootings, all the agents have been cleared. I mean, that seems a little strange if you ask me. And so that's, where I want to question, if I have a question, I'm going to ask them and record it for, my defense as well.
Have you ever been called a conspiracy theorist?
Oh, I've definitely been called a conspiracy theorist. Some people like to think of it as a negative term. However, I consider people who consider it a negative term kind of non-logical thinkers. I mean, our government conspires every day to do everything, from education to that. Does it make it criminal? No, it doesn't make it criminal. Is it wrong to theorize about things? No. I mean, we have conspiracy theorists in science every day. They get together, they conspire about theories, to invent fiber optics, unmanned space travel. But when you ask legitimate questions, I feel that's the easiest way for them to dismiss it and say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, instead of giving you a legitimate answer.
So instead of saying, kind of like what happened the other day with the sheriff, instead of saying, well, here's what happened, or here's the regulation, or here's the law, they just say, you can't ask me that question. You're a conspiracy theorist. Or
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so
They tried throwing it off. Yeah, and that's why it wasn't, as I said, I wasn't meant to be like a journalist asking questions. It was my personal questions, because coming from me, he can say whatever he wants. Oh, he's just a crazy conspiracy theorist. However, if he's asking them from you, or if they're being asked from somebody like you, it's kind of harder for him to say, oh, there's just a crazy conspiracy theorist. However, most people won't go in to ask the sheriff these questions because they know he's going to abuse his power and have them fired or harassed, and stuff like that. That's the way I look at it, I mean, so people can call me whatever they want to. I mean, I just look at stuff and, I mean, do I think everything that is posted on my YouTube channel is true? No, but I feel that people have a right to know. It's the same thing with the sheriff. Am I saying he is wrong in carrying his sidearm open carried off duty? No, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying we, as his constituents, have a right to know the law.
A right to know and a right to ask the questions.
The right to ask the questions. Yeah, well, that's a given under the First Amendment, that we have a right to ask the questions.
The title of your video, I think, was something like 3 questions that Home Depot doesn't like asked, or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Where did that title come from?
It was just something I thought of because Home Depot is the store who the manager is representing. So in his actions, he is representing Home Depot. And he is the one who kicked me out of the store.
Did you get kicked out of the store that day?
No. That day he told me that he was not comfortable. His exact words were, he was not comfortable with me in the store. I stated, if that's how he feels, I would leave the store. I called my management, and told them, what had happened, and they said, no, just stay right there. If you leave, you're basically walking out on your job. Let me call HR and find out what's going on. So I stayed there to the end of my shift. I clocked out and I left. I didn't hear anything till about 3 or 4 o'clock. So I texted my boss, and he sent me a message that says that go to work tomorrow, that they have my back, and stuff like that. So I went to work the next day.
That was Wednesday that you went to work?
Correct. And that's when the store manager wasn't there. There was one of the assistant managers was on. That whole day, I wasn't asked to leave the store or anything like that. I just went in, did my job, and tried to finish off the time, like outside of public view. So that way, I wasn't trying to impose on the store itself in any way. And then, I clocked out, and at the end of that day, I had heard, the rumors and stuff like that. So I called my boss, or I was told basically that they didn't want me in the store. So I said, okay, I called my boss, and he said that he was going to move me to a different store. And I said, okay, if that's, what they want to do, that's fine. I don't see where I've done anything wrong. I didn't break any of our policies, didn't break any laws or anything. But if they want to move me, I'm not, going to sit there and argue with them over the legality of it. And then later on that night is when I found out that I was terminated.
That was Wednesday night?
Yes, sir. That was when I called him to find out if they had an issue with me doing this interview or not.
And when is your shift normally?
I usually clock in around 5, sometimes a little after 5.
In the morning?
Yeah. And then I'm usually done a little after 11. Roughly 6 hours.
Do you have another job, or is this?
No, it was just that one. I used to work 7 days a week, up until I had a medical issue, and then when I went back to work, I told them I was only working 6 days a week. So that's all I did. I worked Monday through Saturday.
Okay. Can I ask how much you made per hour?
I ain't sure the exact rate. I believe it was 9 something. I believe.
What are you gonna do now?
I just went and paid my rent, so I'm covered for now. But I have started looking for another job. I feel that it's going to make it a little harder now. However, my biggest issue is, what am I still going to suffer from the police department due to this becoming such a political issue?
Do you regret what you did?
No, sir, I do not regret what I did in any way. And if the opportunity, if I had to do it again, I would do the same thing over again. I feel every American should question their elected official, and if not, how can they truly call themselves an American?
Had you ever thought of going to the sheriff's office and
I've called up there a few times and left messages. However, I've never had my phone calls returned. I've called, in a way it didn't really bother me that they weren't returned because, as I say, I am just, one of his constituents, and he does have bigger issues to worry about and stuff. When he is on duty, I don't know, what issues arise in the jail in the county. I didn't file for, a formal request, for like a interview or anything like that because I'm sure, that's time is reserved, for reporters like yourself to have, the credentials to ask them, accredited questions without being labeled a conspiracy theorist or an ambush journalist or something like that.
What about, at the beginning of county legislature meetings, you can go and they have a public comment period, and you can make a statement. I don't think you can really ask questions because they're not allowed to respond, but you can make statements and stuff like that. Had you ever thought about doing that?
Yeah, but as you stated, they're not forced to respond, so you can say whatever you want to. And then even when you can respond, a lot of times the elected officials still look down upon the working people unless they hold some kind of scientific or college degree or something. They feel that they are not as educated or not as responsible in some way.
There's a whole movement now, citizen journalists and people that may not think of themselves as journalists, but by doing what they do, create things that become news, like what happened with the video that you made. Do you think that the traditional newspaper, TV, radio, press is falling down on the job, or do you think that, how do you think about that at all?
I do in a way, because I feel, and this is where I kind of hold a double standard towards that, because in a way it is dying because of the advent of citizen journalism, but it is also because of their own downfall that is kind of bringing that in. As I stated, it's not just elected officials either. When people post comments to like the newspapers or journalists and stuff like that, a lot of times they're just ignored, and stuff like that, or the paper itself. I ain't saying your case, but the paper itself already has a biased opinion. And you see that now with news agencies, like Fox and CNN. You get the massive divide to where you literally have to watch both channels in order to figure out what is true because both of them spin it so much.
So some of the sheriff's answers, I think, what was the first question you asked him? Was it about the...
The first question, I believe, was about shopping on duty. And when you watch the interview, you'll find out that it wasn't stated directly towards him. I asked in general because I had seen 3 different agencies, our local police, Department of Homeland Security, which is federal, and now him being, the sheriff being the highest power. He should be able to say, yes or no, whether it is illegal for the sheriff's department to do it, and to speak, on behalf of the city police, since he is kind of in control of them. He made it personal, in my opinion, when he said, "I am off duty."
Mm-hmm.
That was, to me, one way of negating the question of if they should be shopping on duty, because that's what my question was. He changed the question to being off duty when he said he wasn't on duty, and that's when I asked him about the open carry, because all of them officers, or law enforcement officers, if you want to call them that, whatever, was carrying a sidearm at that point in time.
So what time was this?
I believe, the video I recorded, I believe it was 7:10, 7:15, something like that.
In the morning.
Yes, sir.
I think he said, did he say that I'm not on duty yet? Or
I believe he said, "I am off duty."
Okay. And so that opened up the question then, if he's off duty, why is he carrying his weapon out in public?
Correct, because under, the penal law, section 400, I know it gives them an exemption, to carry a weapon and stuff like that. However, it states in there they have to be permitted to carry it. In New York State, to my knowledge, does not offer an open carry even for officials. If they do, he should have just said yes. Law enforcement officers have an open carry permit. But he didn't say that. He said they are allowed to open carry, which I have not been shown any proof of, to this point, in under Section 400, and as I was stating earlier, the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act. It states in that as well that they are to be able to concealed carry, regardless of any state, local, or federal laws, wherever they go. I mean, there is stipulations in there, like they can't carry while they're drinking, and stuff like that. So there is guidelines and stuff like that. However, they feel that, they are above the law, because who is going to enforce it?
How did you find out about all this stuff, like the Section 400 and the Supreme Court decisions?
Whenever I'm not sure on something, I always try to look it up so that way I know. I ain't gonna lie, I hate being wrong. So when I am wrong, I try to find out the correct information. If I don't know the correct information, I try to look it up or ask competent, people who should know it, like the sheriff should.
And then the third question was about using his vehicle, right?
Correct, yeah. Use of the personal vehicle, the official vehicle for personal use.
And he said, "I'm the sheriff, it goes with me wherever I go."
Yeah, that's when he got offended, and I feel, in my opinion, he approached me with his finger in my face. To me, that is a threat. I am the sheriff, I will do what I want, basically.
So did you feel intimidated or threatened?
I felt a little intimidated. I wouldn't really say threatened, because I'm not going to be threatened by somebody, that can't even hold himself accountable to the position he holds.
Do you live in Watertown now?
Yes, sir.
Where do you live?
On Huntington Street.
Is that over by State Street?
Yeah, it's like over by Fat Boys Bar and stuff.
Okay.
Like it wraps like from Factory Street to where it Y's off is that right-hand wide side.
Okay. Have you ever had to call the police for anything?
I've had to call them for a few times. However, you can't really get them to respond. Sometimes it'll take up to an hour or so. I mean, it's very sketchy. I don't think people should rely on the police. I think people should need to rely on themselves for not only their own protection, but for their children's protection and stuff, because as the police have shown, they cannot be, held responsible, and the Supreme Court has also ruled that they are not responsible.
That Supreme Court case that you keep referencing, do you know the name of it?
I'm not. I forgot it on the way here, because I did look it up right on the way here. had so much stuff that I was looking up before here, just that way I did remember, like the HR number for the law enforcement bill and stuff like that. But there's also current legislation that they've put forward to try to make it like a felony, just to simply, well, what the legislation states is it would be a felony to harass law enforcement officials and stuff like that. With that law, what I just did could have technically, under their opinion, be considered harassment, and I could be looking at a felony for it. And people say we're supposed to support the troops that are fighting for our rights and our freedoms. How are they supporting the troops if they're not even honoring what the troops are fighting for and willing to let that die here at home?
So do you have much faith in our government system?
In our government?
Or is it just law enforcement?
That would depend.
Yeah.
Our government as a whole, I got faith in them for a few things. I got faith they'll always be there to take out of my paycheck. I got faith they'll always be there, to make sure people are always subject to laws that they make sure they are not subject to. Do I have faith they would be there when needed? I would refer people to, I don't know, Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Katrina. There's countless issues where the government is not there. They cannot be there. They are not fortune tellers.
Yeah.
And when people start expecting the government for everything, nothing good is going to happen.
What do you think? So, going back to the sheriff, were you satisfied with the answers that he gave you, or?
Not really. He didn't really answer the questions. As I said, for the first one, shopping while on duty, he kind of negated that, and slid it off with saying I'm not on duty, as opposed to saying yes or no as to whether they're allowed to shop on duty or not. Same thing with the open carry. He didn't say, yes, we can open carry under this law. He said, yes, we are allowed to. And when I said, I've received conflicting information, he in no way tried to, reinforce, or even say, contact me at my office, or how can I contact you to get you this information. It's basically, that's what I said, so believe it.
So now it's Friday. The video was taped on Tuesday, posted Tuesday.
I believe it was Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. I'm not sure the exact time.
Okay. And then kind of hit the web, hit News Junkie, hit all that stuff
Yeah.
Wednesday. And now it's Friday. You didn't get the answers that you wanted out of the sheriff.
No, sir.
You lost your job.
Yes, sir.
You got people on the internet calling you all kinds of names.
That's fine.
What good do you see coming out of all of this?
I think it woke people up to a little more corruption within our government, and not just like our sheriff's department, but within major corporations as well, and how they view people's rights.
Is it something that you think will give people, that will make people think more, or that will make them want to question more? I mean, now that you've shown that somebody can go up and ask.
I think in a way it's got positive and negative reinforcements. It does have a lot of positive reinforcement, showing people that, you shouldn't be afraid to walk up and question your sheriff. To me, that's your job as, a resident of that county, is to question your sheriff. Make sure what he's doing is legal. If not, who's going to keep them accountable? They hold us accountable. We should hold them accountable as well, since we are paying them. They should be held accountable as in, anybody who is held accountable by their employer. However, there is negative effects because now a lot of people may feel intimidated to question him due to the fact that they know he will cost them their job. That, he may, do whatever he feels necessary, to feel that that person, I don't know, gets what they deserve, I guess. I don't really know how to put it.
Now, as a so you lost your job, right? Thinking about it, so were you on break when this happened, or how would you describe
I don't
it?
have a set break time because I'm there for that time frame. So as I stated in the video, every day for the past 2 years, I've always went out a little after 7 because that's when I get done doing the bathrooms in the break room and in between starting the floors, which always gives the Home Depot associate time to finish their pack downs or whatever they have to do.
What time does Home Depot open?
They open, I believe, at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
It's a little later on Sundays. And that particular day I hadn't even went outside yet, so I saw him, and that's why I figured, well, he's here, he's in official capacity, Home Depot don't mind when I ask, the customers if they need a hand, or, when their customers ask me if I can show them where a product is, why would this be any different considering, he's an elected official, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't trying to make an issue. It wasn't going to take up time, other than I think it was like less than 2 minutes is what the video is and everything. And he could have been on his way. Like I was saying, I didn't expect him to feel offended or threatened or harassed or whatever he may have felt.
If there's like a misunderstanding about the incident, what do you think it is?
I think the biggest misunderstanding is that, it was, I ambushed him to play, got you, and it wasn't nothing like that. Like I stated, I wanted answers to my questions, and I know through their previous actions that they are not an honest and integral police department. That is why I recorded it for my protection as well as his. That way he couldn't say I threatened him. I couldn't say, he threatened to arrest me or anything like that.
Anything else, Chad?
Not really. Whatever questions you have.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't have anything to hide over it. I've done my past deeds and and been in trouble for it. Everybody's has done something wrong in their past, I feel. However, it's what they learn from them mistakes to not do them again and do to change their life.
Do you think you'll do something like this again?
Without a doubt. I mean, I've been told by Fort Drum that if I ever go up there and protest any public officials or the president or anybody coming back, I would be arrested again. Same thing I stated to them. I was well within my rights. I will do it again. And if you have a problem with it, you need to look at the oath you have taken.
Why did you protest Obama?
Because Obama promised a lot of things that still has not been seen. He promised to bring our troops home. The only reason he's doing it now is because they've basically been kicked out of the country. He promised to close Gitmo. The only thing he managed to close was the office set up to close Gitmo. He promised to bring our troops home. He, in turn, sent more troops over and, the initial troop surge once he was elected. You'll get the argument, well, Bush did it too. Well, isn't that why he's a Democrat and Bush was a Republican? They're supposed to be different. I will rail on George Bush just as bad. That dude, without a doubt, is a crook. But so is Obama. And people are so stuck in the left-right divide, they can't separate themselves from any partisan issue and look at the questions being asked from an independent perspective.
Can we get a picture of you with your phone?
Sure.
We'll have to go back to the photography department.